The scientists said Tokyo big earthquake happens within 30 years with 70% certainty. In this context, the project aims to create a new kind of ephemeral bottom-up urban strategic design as a disaster culture in Japan, Tokyo, that is able to be mobile and responsive, drawing on my experiences of running sample, contain ideas of Tokyo void space and relate to the distant past of tradition, work in anticipation of future disasters that can be used in daily routine and periodic cycle to preserve disaster culture through time as an ephemeral act from small scale to macro scale. Rather than this being a single piece of architecture, I propose a range of strategies and behaviors that can adapt and change. Sample is my practice, which is a group of creators that has a transient, bottom-up, and DIY attitudes who builds and use mobile architectures for individuals. We produce mobile houses with workshop style in a cost-effective and customizable way. We also run 5 docking stations in Tokyo called House Core, which provides infrastructures and different communities. This system allows people to live flexibly according to their conditions through time. Urban history, void space Tokyo. Secondly, I explore the impermanent Tokyo void typology that exists across time. 2 catastrophic disasters each destroyed over half of Tokyo's urban fabric. After these disasters, in each case, top-down urban planning strategy failed to impose a grid over the city because of the topography, separated land ownership, open construction system. These red areas of the accumulated old timber buildings are at risk of destruction in the next severe earthquake, so my design strategy aims to apply there. Voids exist in Tokyo that also remains a crucial part of the city and cannot simply be erased. Line void, surface void, particle void. The idea of the void is a strong presence in Japanese cities, and my project tried to develop an architecture to hack the voids with bottom-up strategies as a resilient city typology. I interpreted Tokyo as an accumulation of ephemeral actions and process with this void typology and traditional aesthetic of the impermanence of Shinto. HCML. I try to quantify and qualify void space utilizing my architectural cartographic system. A series of walks in Tokyo were undertaken and activities and movements were recorded, producing the HCML drawings. That translates the individual sequential walking into time-based filmic drawings. I speculated the HCML database can produce new urban development with fragmented architectures. From this study, I began to think of architecture as activities, moments, and interactions rather than a fixed building. In the process of fragmented development, facade can be made with the street activities with the pop-up architecture. History of construction and protection in Japan. Long history of disaster, I look to the past. Looking at the Japanese traditional ephemeral aesthetic, I was inspired by the rituals of the Ise shrine that destroys and rebuilds structure every 20 years to preserve traditions and construction techniques through time without material conservation. Mikoshi Dashi Street Festival. A portable shrine called Mikoshi Dashi is the same concept of utilize street as an empty space where gods can be gathered. So this festival typology represents Japanese aesthetic of the city and can be seen as a linkage to the pop-up living and Japanese tradition too. I was also inspired by how buildings were protected, preserved, and destroyed in the earthquake in either period. Cluster houses were important in protecting valuables. Through the research, I designed the evacuation modules and cluster house modules for disaster prevention. When the disaster happens, people can run away and come back to the cluster house after the disaster. Through the iterations, I was developing the ritual acts with those pop-up architectures over time around the disaster, and how those modules can be activated, deployed in the void space and reconstruct surrounded city. As a conclusion, we live with the disaster, not against the disaster. I started reimagining these historic processes, thinking of ephemeral process of the architecture as a continuous act to preserve the culture. Final projects. Connecting daily routines and periodic rituals are the key to remember and pass on the disaster culture. After several iterations of the street modules, I designed 6 micro to macro scale strategies that are resistant to the idea of fixed architecture. Wearable ring which reminds the city is impermanent with rusting effect. Tacto, which is the mobile street expandable kit. Mock, which is the movable DIYable box to pack your valuables and live flexibly. Hock, which is the docking stations and community spaces for the mock. Craft storehouse to store valuables, which is built within the existing building. Mikoshi Street Festival modules as a periodic making exercise and rebuild city. The structure of each design is mostly lightweight and simple timber joints so that this is achievable by DIY. Seeing those pop-up architecture as a learning process of making and transient act as a preparation of the coming disaster. The final film context is in 2021 and mostly shooted in real life with one-to-one gadgets to show this is happening at this very moment and the preparation for the earthquake is urgent. I specified 3 characters from sample to lead the story: DJ/maker, architect/ring merchant, and cafe owner, showing micro scale to macro scale strategies as a daily routine to periodical festivals. Shooting was achieved by the help of the professional cameraman and shooting director and sample team member. I was inspired by rhyming disaster song called Summon that was inherited over 150 years and saved people from the historical earthquake in Indonesia. The final film can be seen as a music video with a rap to remember disaster preparation. The beat consists of Japanese alert for earthquake and several sounds mashed up from the daily sound of DIY tools to get the essence of the bottom-up bricolage attitudes of sample. Enjoy my video.